My name's Amin, and this is my final essay. From Displacement to Laughter, a comparative analysis of cultural coping in modern Hebrew literature. In the diverse landscape of modern Hebrew literature, narratives often grapple with the complexities of identity, trauma, and cultural resilience. Two presentations from the Teach Us Something discussion, The Immigrant Experience in Israeli Children's Literature by Florence Paul, and Laughing Through the Pain, Humor in Modern Hebrew Literature by Omer Mirza and Adam Butt. Both offer compelling explorations of how literature serves as both a mirror and balm for Israel's society. Florence's presentation examines how children's literature addresses themes for displacement and integration, especially among young immigrants adapting to new cultural realities. In contrast, Omer and Adam explore how humor, often dark or ironic, functions as a coping mechanism for the collective traumas and tensions in modern Israeli life. Despite their differences in target audience and tone, both presentations underscore literature's ability to process pain and preserve cultural identity. This essay argues that while Florence's Paul analysis focuses on literal representations of immigrant identity and adjustment, and Omer and Adam highlight metaphorical and satirical responses to national struggles. Both reveal how modern Hebrew literature fosters resilience by transforming hardship into narrative expression. At first glance, children's literature and humor literature might seem worlds apart, but one aiming to gently educate the other to provoke thought through laughter. However, both function as tools of social commentary and emotional processing. Florence's Paul presentation highlights Israeli children's books such as Sharon Retcher and Leslie Simpson, which center on young protagonists navigating the challenges of immigration, language barriers, and cultural misunderstandings and identity crisis. These narratives help readers develop empathy and a sense of belonging, often portrayed as a multicultural space striving for unity amid diversity. They align with the national projects of integration, reflecting the ideological role of literature in shaping a shared Israeli identity. On the other hand, Omer Mirza and Adam Butt dive into authors that employ humor, often absurd, cynical, or dark, to address themes like war, bureaucracy, and ethnic tension. Humor in these stories is not escapist but confrontational, exposing uncomfortable truths while allowing readers to laugh through pain. Meir Shalev's short stories often involve surreal or exaggerated scenarios that subtly critique the absurdities of daily life in Israel. Kashua, as an Arab-Israeli writer, uses irony to explore the double consciousnesses of living between two cultures. Humor becomes a survival tactic, especially in a society where trauma and conflict are near constants. The two approaches differ in audience and tone. Children's literature aims to foster inclusion and hope, while humor literature often leans into delusionment and critique. Yet both are deeply connected to the project of identity formation. Florence's examples show young immigrants trying to fit in while maintaining aspects of their heritage, echoing the national ethos. Meanwhile, Omer and Adam highlight authors who challenge monolithic narratives of identity, offering views from the margins or mainstream ideologies through laughter. Thus, both genres reflect the complexities of Israeli identity and the emotional labor of belonging. Now, it's important to ask questions and make sure we can answer them. Here are 3 questions for Florence's Paul presentation. The first one being, how do Israeli children's books portray immigrant parents, and what message is that sent to young readers? Many books depict parents as overwhelmed or confused, reinforcing the idea that children often become cultural translators. This inversion of roles empowers young readers and emphasizes adaptability, thus suggesting that the new generation is key to national stability. Are immigrant children depicted as passive recipients of Israeli culture, or do they shape it in return? While early literature portrayed assimilation as the goal, more recent texts show children blending cultures, introducing foods, languages, and traditions from their homelands into Israeli society. This evolution mirrors broader multicultural shifts in Israeli discourse. What role does language play in these stories, and how is bilingualism treated? Language is central in books that often include moments of confusion, mispronunciation, or pride in learning Hebrew. Bilingualism is increasingly seen as an asset rather than a hurdle, reflecting a more pluralistic view of Israeli identity. Now for questions in Omar Mirza and Adam Butt's presentation. How does humor function directly in fiction compared to traditional Jewish humor? This kind of humor is less about old Jewish traditions or clever religious jokes and more about strange modern situations that don't always make sense. While traditional Jewish humor often centers on communal survival, can humor be an effective form of political resistance in Israeli literature? Yes. Writers like Syed Kusha use satire to highlight the contradictions and hypocrisies of Israeli society, especially regarding ethnic and linguistic divides. Humor allows taboo subjects to be broached without direct confrontation, making it a subversive tool. Does humor in Israeli literature trivialize suffering, or does it deepen our understanding of it? Rather than trivializing, humor often intensifies the emotional impact by juxtaposing laughter without horror. The dissonance forces readers to grapple with pain more deeply, as seen in stories where mundane situations spiral into tragicomic chaos. Now I have found 4 additional questions that I find meaningful. How have immigration narratives in Israeli children's literature changed over time in response to new immigrant groups? Earlier works were focused on European immigrants, such as Holocaust survivors, but more recent stories include Ethiopian, Russian, and Mersey immigrants. Each brings their own cultural challenges, and literature has increasingly shifted from assimilist themes to multicultural acceptance. In what ways has modern Hebrew literature used humor to address gender roles of expectation? Authors like Orly Castle Bloom use humor to critique domestic life, motherhood, and gender norms in Israeli society. Her satirical style reveals the pressures placed on women and disrupts traditional narratives about femininity and nationalism. How does the Israeli educational system use literature to teach a national identity? Literature is part of the civic education curriculum. Children read stories that reinforce values of inclusion, resilience, and critical thinking. Humor is so used sparingly, but select authors like Karet have entered the canon, suggesting a growing openness to complexity. Are these intersections between immigrant narratives and humor in any Israeli literary works? Yes, authors like Eshkol Nevo and Ayelet Tzabari blend humor and immigration themes, using comedic misunderstandings or cultural clashes to humanize immigrants. These hybrid narratives suggest that laughter can coexist with the pain of displacement. Next, I have created a short narrative dialogue between the presenters of the 2 presentations. The scene is a coffee shop in Tel Aviv. Florence, representing immigrant children literature, sits across from Omar and Adan, representing humor literature. Florence, I must say your work is unconventional, laughing about war and trauma. Omar, and yours is so earnest. Do you really think children believe in the world is as tidy as your books make it seem? Adan, not to mention, humor helps us say the unsayable. Authors can talk about bureaucracy and death in one sentence and somehow for whatever reason it sticks. Florence, I agree. Literature can reflect reality, but children need structure and hope. Their world is already confusing enough. A story can help them see they're not alone. Omer, but don't you see? That's exactly what we do. We laugh with people, not at them. We show the absurdity of being alive in the chaos. It's comfort, not mockery. Adan, and laughter is a form of hope too, isn't it? If you can laugh, it means the pain hasn't crushed you. Humor is a kind of resistance, don't you think? Florence, perhaps, but I still worry that irony distances readers from real emotion, doesn't make everything feel attached. Omer, or maybe it brings people closer to emotion. Irony can soften the impact, letting readers approach the difficult truths without shutting down or being offended. Florence, that's an interesting point. In a way, we're both trying to build bridges, me through empathy and you through catharsis. Adan, exactly. Whether it's through a child learning Hebrew for the first time or a man trying to order coffee during a rocket launch, we're telling stories about survival. Florence, still, children need stability. They look to stories to understand their place in the world. Omer, and adults look to stories to understand why the world is falling apart. Adam, or why it's worth staying in it, even when it feels like it's falling apart. Humor reminds us we're human, even in the worst of times. Florence. Then maybe we're not so dimmed after all. You prepare readers for a confusing world, I give them the tools to find their place in it. Adon. Right. Whether it's a new language, a new home, or a new punchline, we're just helping people survive the story. In conclusion, Florence Paul's exploration of immigrant narratives in Israeli children's literature, and Omar Merzer and Adnan Butt's analysis of humor in modern Hebrew fiction appear to operate separate planets but the same galaxy, one nurturing young minds, the other challenging adult assumptions. Yet both forms of literature reveal how Israelis comfort hardship with resilience, whether through the quiet strength of a child learning new culture or the sharp wit of a writer poking fun at social contradictions. Together, these presentations demonstrate the richness of modern Hebrew literature as both a historical document and living dialogue, constantly reshaping the national conversation through stories that soothe, provoke, and unite everybody. That is the end of my final essay for modern Hebrew literature.